Everywhere you look these days, companies are buying training data for their AI models. Even Zoom got in trouble for saying they'd use your meeting data for their AI models. But most accounting firms today, we aren't even recording our own client meetings because it's uncomfortable, right? What will the client say? Or even, is this evil to think that we would capture that client data, that meeting data for ourselves? Today, I want to give you my thoughts on what is arguably the most valuable thing every accounting firm produces on an ongoing basis. That is advice, usually in the context of a meeting. It is truly the sawdust of a professional services firm, if only we could find a way to harvest it. And if we make the decision to begin capturing that info, there are some really powerful things we can do with it. So today, we're going to talk about the various ways to use your meeting data, why you would even do this to begin with. 2, how to capture it, just from a very basic practical standpoint. And 3, how to discuss this with our clients, and even just how to feel about it. Like, is this icky? So up first, what's the upside of even doing this? I'm gonna give you 4 ways to use your meeting transcript data. Number 1, man, total recall. Imagine having transcripts of every single client meeting you have had for the past decade, not having to wonder like, oh, did the client say that he was claiming his daughter on the even years or the odd years? Or did they use that other app in the past? Imagine if you had like perfect memory for all of those client discussions that you've ever had, but then being able to search them with an LLM, an AI large language model. Not just this Control F, find a specific bit of text, but now with AI, that information, it's more useful than ever before because we can like query it. We can say, was this rental ever discussed? And then immediately get an answer across thousands of pages of information. Now, how about unblocking your team? Imagine your team having instant access to a transcript the moment you get off that meeting. You know, when you're doing those back-to-backers and you're blocking the team and you get to the end of the day and you're like, I don't even remember what came up in the first meeting. Or your colleague met with the client yesterday. You're sending that client an email, but you don't know if what you're asking about was discussed. Oh, wouldn't it be nice to just come over? Hey, did this come up in the meeting? Or, I mean, bigger than that, every meeting with that client, say, has this ever come up with the client? Having all this information centralized keeps your entire team on the same page, saves your colleagues time, and probably saves your clients a pile of time as well for you not having to ask repeat questions. Now, on the subject of team building, how about supporting your team? Imagine, get back in the old time machine, you're a junior sitting there thinking through a situation with a client and wondering, I wonder if anybody else in the firm has ever had a similar conversation with a client. The answer is almost certainly, right? I mean, we're by and large rehashing the same things with clients over and over again. But imagine if that junior could instantly pull up a past example of that conversation. Now, every client's context is gonna be a little bit different, but to have that resource at their disposal, man, that would be gold. Now, is it a replacement for like sitting with your team members and having those conversations and training them? Like, no, it certainly isn't, but it's a tremendous tool that they could have at their disposal. Last use case I'm super excited about is using this information with your marketing partners. If you have ever tried to pull a marketing agency in to produce content that's useful for your firm, you know just how difficult it is to do that in your voice. But imagine if a marketing team had access to your actual insights, transcripts of you advising around specific topics. Now, you've got some disclosure stuff to navigate here. Maybe that looks like redacted meeting transcripts, but to have like real live examples of you advising, that is tremendous marketing content. And the reality is when you get out of a meeting and you're having a conversation with a client on a subject matter where you've discussed that 100 times in the past, the reality is there are probably ready-made bits in that meeting transcript that can be quickly turned into really valuable content. But because your marketing partners like don't have that expertise and they don't see into you doing that work, the content they create for you feels just kind of blah, kind of vanilla, right? And not really in your voice. If we begin capturing these conversations, I think you'll find it actually unlocks some really cool marketing opportunities. Now, I run a daily podcast that's like strategy for small accounting firms. It's pushing 400 episodes. And we have an AI chat assistant that is trained on every single episode of that podcast. And it has become an eerily accurate version of the way that I advise firms. And while right now it may seem scary or even irresponsible to put something like this in front of clients, imagine capturing your expertise at the very least to use as a resource internally. Pretty cool, right? I just want to show you super practically, what does it look like to record your meetings if you haven't done this before with a couple different tools. One, Zoom's built-in recordings, and two, a third-party tool called Fireflies that connects with a bunch of different meeting recorders. I won't go very deep on any of the features here. Just want to give you like the 10,000 foot view of how they work and the features that I'm looking for in a tool for me. If you're using Zoom, there's basically two ways you could set this up in Zoom. One is with, quote, smart recordings, and that is where it will record like the entirety of the meeting, from the visuals to the audio to screen sharing, absolutely everything. And then you have kind of this interface with the transcript on the right, and you can kind of chat with the transcript and pull out different clips and all that. If you want to go whole hog on recordings, that'll probably work fine for you. But me, myself, I actually just want the transcript. That's actually the most valuable part of the meeting to me, is just the text transcript. I'm probably gonna take that somewhere else. And if that's all you want, I'll show you the easiest way to get that right now. It's with Zoom's, quote, AI companion. If you go into your Zoom settings on the web, the desktop settings don't include this for some reason. If you go into your Zoom settings on the web, I'm under settings and AI companion. Scroll down here to, here you go, turn on meeting summary automatically when meetings start. And it's not named very clearly, but this will create a transcript of the entire meeting. Just the text, not like recording everything else, just a text transcript. Now the other tool I'm using, Fireflies, pretty quick to set up, basically just connects to your calendar and then will, depending on the settings, automatically join any calendar events that you're on that have any type of web conferencing link, whether it's Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams. It's actually the nice part of a third-party tool. Fireflies, you can even connect it to like voice over IP phone systems. They've got a great mobile app for recording in-person meetings. You just put it out like an old-timey recorder you would use in like a college lecture back in the day. So here in the settings, under auto join settings, I can turn this on. By default, only meetings where Fred at Fireflies is invited, it will join. But down here, I can say only meetings that I own, any meeting on my calendar with a web conference link, only meetings that my team members own. So regardless of what tool you use, ensure that it's set up to automatically be going into the right types of meetings, so you're not having to remember to like manually say, create a transcript every single time. So I had a meeting earlier today. I'll show you on the Zoom side what it looks like to have that transcript. So here we are. If all you want is the transcript, this is what you get. I can download the transcript here. It's literally just a text file, which is fine as far as I'm concerned. Here's the transcript. So I bought a place in Sausalito. It's turned into quite the gem. Gem. I got that wrong. I converted it to a B&B and couples only gym. The basement's used for mining crypto. I just replaced the roof. The hardware floors, as it turns out, are hardly waterproof. That was an actual client meeting that I had earlier today. Transcript did a pretty good job, only got gem wrong. And if all I want is just the text of my Zoom meetings, this is a really easy way to get that automatically. Now, Fireflies works more or less the same way, but there's one feature I wanna show you that AI is now enabling that actually makes these transcripts much more useful. So here in Fireflies, I actually uploaded an old video of mine, the 8 mistakes I made choosing accounting firm tech, because a feature Fireflies has that Zoom doesn't have right now is you can upload anything you want, a video file, an audio file, create a transcript just like it would for a meeting. And so in the Fireflies interface, in the middle here, you've got an overview. On the right, you've got the full transcript. Don't get suckered into the allure of meeting summaries. What we want and what we do is actually the nitty-gritty granular detail. And summaries oftentimes, in my experience, aren't super accurate. But the feature I wanna show you here is the ability to chat with the transcript, to ask for those very specific details. In Fireflies, that's called Fred, like the AI assistant. If all I have is the text file and I'm doing like a Control F search, oftentimes I'm not gonna get the word exactly right to find the thing I'm looking for. And that gets even worse when the transcripts can sometimes mess up like the names of places. This is where language models are super helpful. So on the left-hand side here, I'll ask the AI assistant, should I avoid tools that don't integrate? And it gives a response based on the transcript. It says you shouldn't automatically avoid tools that don't integrate with your existing systems. While they're beneficial, the most important factor is whether the tool effectively meets your specific needs. And that is a whole lot more than a Control F kind of find thing, right? Let me illustrate one more example of the value of this. I'm actually gonna edit the transcript here and add one line and say, Chuck's favorite ice cream flavor is chocolate. And this is the kind of very specific detail that could be buried in a 1 hour long meeting that may be what I'm looking for, that a meeting summary will not surface, right? And so if I come over to the assistant here, I say, did they discuss Chuck's favorite ice cream? They sure did. It's chocolate. However, this mention is used as a metaphor to illustrate the point about understanding what you need in your tech stack. Obviously doesn't make sense in that transcript, right? But it found the detail. And this is the value of transcripts. Did we talk about that one very specific thing 3 years ago? Imagine being able to have an AI assistant you can come to and just say, did we talk about this thing? And it's like, yeah, chocolate. That's the value of having these transcripts. Now, whether you go with Zoom, Fireflies, or something else entirely, I don't want to overcomplicate this. The most important thing is that you're capturing them somehow. A few things about Fireflies specifically that I like. The transcript accuracy has always been really good. It works across all meeting platforms, and that's a problem because if I'm only recording Zoom meetings here, but then I don't have a way to also capture in-person meetings or phone calls, that's a real headache. Whereas Fireflies can actually connect with any types of meetings, in-person, phone, web conferencing platforms. I can upload files to Fireflies if I got them elsewhere. For some reason, it didn't come through my normal pipeline. I can chat with those transcripts. We just saw the value of that. It has a really good mobile app, and I use that mobile app for in-person stuff. And it's got a pretty darn good Zapier integration. And if you are a nerd like me and like integrating your tools in different ways, Fireflies is gonna do that really well. All right, last, how do we actually go live with this? And also, how should we feel about it? Like, is this kind of icky? So let's start with the security stuff. Number one, we gotta work through the security scaries. And it's just worth saying out loud, every app that you use here needs to go through your due diligence process because transcripts obviously contain very sensitive information. Now, if you look at an app like Fireflies that we were just looking at, an extremely secure app, SOC 2 Type 2 certification, multi-factor authentication, like all of the things that you want to look for in an app for your firm. Now, we are still stuck in some legacy thinking around AI meaning by default not secure. And this is from very early days language models when prompts were actually trained into models. By and large now in business applications, this is virtually never the case. And so just because it is AI does not mean that it is fundamentally secure. The fact that there are not secure ways to use AI does not make AI itself not secure. Now, ironically, AI is actually the most powerful redaction tool we've ever had because I can't write a script, a bunch of code, to strip out every personally identifying bit of information from a transcript. I mean, you could use it to strip out like phone numbers or something like that, right? But as we talk with people, it's not structured enough to be able to reliably pull everything out. That is until we had large language models. Large language models do this really, really well. And so if there's a use case you're excited about, maybe it's marketing, getting a transcript to a marketing partner. If there's a use case you're excited about where you're blocked on security concerns, consider how you could redact that transcript. And a secure AI large language model is actually a really effective way to do just that. Now next, consider that transcripts are actually a fantastic CYA. And so if we have this concern over, well, I don't like anybody sitting in or recording my meetings, if this is gonna be a client's reaction to you rolling this out, consider what the counter argument really is here. If the client is saying that I'm not willing to be, recorded, like I'm not willing to have a record of my own conversations, man, that's probably not a conversation I wanna be having to begin with, right? Like I'm not gonna let you only ever call me on my burner phone. That puts all of the exposure on me. That's not something that I'm willing to do. And this is where, like number 3, it just comes down to getting comfortable discussing this with clients. And in my experience, all this is like one conversation up front with a client when they're being onboarded, just saying, listen, we always record our conversations because it actually saves us a pile of time. It saves you a pile of time. We can get you copies of the transcripts if you want. It keeps us from like having to ask you questions when you tell one colleague something, but the other person may not be in the loop. It's just much easier for everybody. And as long as we're doing everything above board, there's no issues there. Now, we are not like training our own models. And just like the mechanics of like, what does that actually mean, training your own models? None of us are training our own models. We're using basically retrieval augmented generation, where an AI model uses the information that you give it and then formulates a response based on that. Very different from training a model from scratch. More importantly, probably is that we are not selling this information to third parties by any means. We're not taking meeting information or even redacted meeting information and selling that. We're using it to make our firm more effective, more productive. And that is very different than like the boogeyman gobbling up all this data and reselling it, like you see with like redacted health data and stuff like that. Man, I'm so bullish on this. The notion that this advice is like the sawdust of your firm and it has a tremendous amount of value if we are more intentional about how we capture it and use it. Loads of things we can do with that, but most important today is that you simply start capturing those meetings. Every day where you don't capture those meetings is a lost opportunity to capture your very own expertise. Now, another hot trend in small firms, buddy, hiring talented accountants in the Philippines with today's sponsor is Team Up Time. Team Up Time. Team Up is keyword that binds when you just can't find the perfect hire. The work is backing up. Oops, I smell fire. Oh, the best accountants. You may not know this, the last 4 hires I made in my accounting firm, they were all in the Philippines. Super talented accountants. Became essential parts of the team. Team up. It's team up time. Team up. The one thing Team Up actually does different is they're simply a recruiter. They'll find you really talented folks in the Philippines and then you work with those people directly. There's not some middleman taking half of the money that you're paying to them. You just work directly with talented people. They'll find them for you. Choose Team Up. It's the thing to do. Wow. That's the Jason on Firms house band. Really good stuff, everybody. Okay, if you've got some meeting transcript wisdom, if you've been doing this for a while, man, drop that stuff down in the comments. It'll be good to see. And YouTube thinks that you're gonna absolutely love this video. I think you should check it out. I bet you will. I bet it's gonna be a banger. That's it, bye.